Continuing on with the Second Synod of Cashel, we come to the third and fourth constitutions. Remember that these resulted from the papal bull which Pope Adrian IV gave to King Henry II, granting him the permission to take Ireland under English governance, but for Rome. Let us always keep in mind as well that Henry II was a Plantagenet, meaning that his family roots were French. England had already been taken over, and now these same interests had their eyes on Ireland. So let us read the third constitution. Quote, that all the faithful do pay the tithe of animals, corn, and other produce to the church of which they are parishioners. End quote. This was totally counter to the traditional manner of divvying up land and wealth in Ireland. For if we recall that a traditional custom in marriage would not permit a wife or a husband from giving away their wealth to the partner, as the wealth was not solely theirs but belonged to their family. It belonged in their family. And we can see the first constitution of this synod revolved around the breakdown of tribal connections. The second constitution of this synod revolved around indoctrinating children into this worldview, into this new religion that was being foisted upon the Irish people. And now this third synod looks at taking away the tribal wealth, taking the wealth from the Irish people. And why would the Irish hand this over so willingly? We can see that the esteem with which the Irish people held their learned men, their holy men, their druids, was now being taken advantage of, and their misplaced trust in these new holy men had been misplaced, as these new holy men served not the Irish people, but the ancient Roman families under the guise of Catholicism. So we're talking about subversion. We're talking about the Irish people's innate goodwill towards learned men or people that were seen as religious or holy, being subverted, being used against them. So the fourth constitution of the synod, quote, that all ecclesiastical lands and property connected with them be quite exempt from the exactions of all laymen, and especially that neither the petty kings nor counts nor any powerful men in Ireland nor their sons with their families do exact, as was usual, victuals and hospitality or entertainments in the ecclesiastical districts, or presume to extort them by force, and that the detestable food or contributions which used to be required 4 times in the year from the farms belonging to churches by the neighbouring counts shall not be claimed any more. So what is this saying? Note that it says as usual. So you have a church setting itself up to claim the wealth of the parishioners, those who follow him, while also distancing themselves or escaping from having any obligation, as was usual, to those people. So on the one hand, you see wealth flowing one way from the people to the church. The church had no obligation, it declared it had no obligation to give back anything, as was usual, as was the previous custom of the Irish, that everything was shared among its people. The tribe benefited from everything. This was no longer the case under Roman law, Roman rule. And the effects of that are still obvious today. The Vatican is probably, maybe along with the Queen of England and a few other shady characters or families and houses, are the largest landowners in the world. And a massive amount of Ireland, its land, its buildings, industries, etc., would have been held by the Catholic Church under this synod. This was the start of it. So why am I saying this? With all the current turmoil in Ireland occurring right now, why am I choosing to focus on this event? You could say it's over and it doesn't matter anymore. To which I would say that we're experiencing the consequences of the rot of morality and the spirit in the Irish people. And I believe that advancing the idea that history has no bearing on what we are experiencing today is misguided at best and foolish at worst. And I focus on this event as it is a clear handing over, a changing of the guard, a documented event of the attempted destruction of the traditional way of Irish living. The way we built and oriented our tribes was being attacked by two forces working together, Rome and the English crown. which had been taken over itself by French families and would in turn be handed over to Dutch and German families in the following centuries. So it's not just an English-Irish thing. There's other factors at play here. Let me also say that while we are dealing with groups of people attempting to dominate us, we must never lose sight of the ideology which they infected our minds with, which served the purpose of making us more agreeable to the actions of these bandits and tyrants. As is the case with all abusers, physical force is less needed if you can infect the victim with your own sick mind. That is why this is relevant today, as what we are experiencing is the centuries-old psychological warfare program reaching its conclusion. We overcome this only by recognizing it, or we perish forever.